Hey guys, welcome to the video, welcome to my garage. In the last video, I made some improvements on the front suspension of Wratchet. In this video, I'm going to be working on the rear. So as you can see right now, Wratchet has a coil, he's got a bypass, and he's got a bump stop. The coil right now does not have any valving in it. It's strictly just a coil carrier. I do all of my dampening right now with the bypass, and then I've got the bump stop for when I reach the end of my travel. I want to try to experiment a little bit, and I want to cut down some weight here, and it feels like there's a lot going on for what is, I think, a relatively lightweight Baja. So I'm going to try to set this up so that I don't need the bump stop. And the way that I'm going to do that is I'm going to change the valving in my bypass, because I'm going to kind of treat it a little bit like it's still going to do dampening, but I'm really going to use it to really stiffen up at the end of its travel. And I'm going to take my coilover and I'm going to put valving in it so that not only is it my coilover, but this will actually now do most of the dampening, and I'll just use this for trim, and I'm going to try to do away with this. And then just like I did in the front, I'm going to put aluminum rotors on here to see if I can shed a little bit of weight with that as well. But let me get everything torn apart here, because the first thing I'm going to do is revalve the shocks. All right, let me show you what I did here. This video, it might seem like this was kind of quick, but you're actually looking at probably, took me about a month to get all of this done. Now, for starters, you'll see that I cleaned everything up. I did that between the camera, and also I took apart, inspected, cleaned up, and then reassembled the entire axle. That was a complete different video because that took a week in and of itself. So this has been freshened up. There was nothing wrong with it. I needed to take it out. So I figured while I had it out, I would take it apart and clean everything up. But what I did here is I have eliminated the bump stop here. You can see the can is still here, so I can definitely put the bump stop back in there if I feel I need to. And then the upper link that I had before was rectangular, and it had a pad on here for the bump stop to hit, and it was pretty substantial. And if I don't have the bump stop hitting that anymore, I don't need all of that, so I have this upper link. I actually had already made these originally. When I built Wratchet the first time, I didn't know where the bump stop was going to be, so I had already made these. So I put these back in place. These are much lighter than the upper link that was on there before. And then what I was doing before is the coil carriers did not have any valving in them at all. They were strictly a coil carrier, and I was doing all of my dampening with the bypass shock. And as the season went on, I actually found that I kept needing more and more shock absorber. So I had, by the end of the year, turned in all of the bypasses, so I was strictly using it as a shock absorber. I wasn't even using the bypass function. And so what I've done now is I took the valves that were in the bypass and I moved them over to the coilover. So now this coilover is doing the dampening that the bypass was doing last year. So then in the bypass, I put in a very stiff set of shims. I put in 15 thousandths shims for the compression on the bypass. And what I want to do, and I'll ramp this up if I need to, but my intention is to then use the bypass to trim or adjust additional dampening if I need it. But what I'm really hoping is that by the end of the bypass's stroke, when it passes all of the bypasses, it will then be my bump stop. And that's why I put in the 15 thousandths shims. And as I use him, if I feel that I need more, I'll make those even thicker. But I'm using that as the bump stop. Now, in order to do that, I had to make this shock so that it actually physically will reach a limit with when the chassis is about 2.5 inches before it hits the ground, just like the bump stop was doing, so that if I actually get myself into a situation where everything is completely compressed, it will stop before it allows the chassis to hit the ground. So what I had to do is, you can see this was the mount that was on the coilover, just like it is, and I had this exact same piece on the bypass, but now I've made a different piece here so that it lowers the bypass, and it's brought the bypass further down. And like I said, that makes it, there's also a teeny tiny rubber bushing on there. But now what happens is, when this piece comes all the way up and smashes into here, that will be when the chassis has about 2.5 inches before it hits the ground. Now, I know that this typically isn't how people do it, and this is, this is kind of an experiment, just like the aluminum brakes. I like messing around with stuff like this. I will be monitoring this and making adjustments and seeing if it works. I like it because I've dropped the weight of the bump stop, and I've dropped weight of this, and then of course with the aluminum rotors I dropped some weight there. But if it doesn't work, it's as simple as putting this center link back in, putting the bump stop back in, and then just switching this to the other mounts that were in there. So I haven't done anything that's irreversible, and it'll give me something to play around with. So that's it. That's the changes I made to the rear suspension. Oh, and one other thing, I took off the sway bar. Again, I can definitely put it right back in, but I want to begin the season seeing how it is without the sway bar. Last year I was starting to think the sway bar was maybe a little bit too stiff, so I'm going to play around with that a little bit too. But I'll probably, as I go places, bring that with me so that I can slap it back in there if I need to. The weather's starting to get nicer now, so I'm trying to hurry up a little bit and finish these little things. There's one other thing I want to do, so I got to put all the panels back on here, get the tire on, get him ready to go, and then take care of this one other item that I want to address before I start taking him back out to the track. But anyways, that's it for this video, guys. That's what I did to the rear suspension. Like I said, I think some of these things that I'm doing are a little bit different. Give me in the comments if you've had any luck or bad luck doing things like this, or if you think any of this is crazy. I'm open to any constructive criticism. But that's it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I hope to see you on the next video. Take care.